My name was Delilah Bishop, and if you're hearing this story, it's because I finally managed to get justice, even after death. For 30 long years, I was the executive secretary at Morrison Import and Export in Miami, Florida, a company that looked respectable on the outside, but hid secrets dirtier than the polluted waters of Biscayne Bay. I was born in 1965 in a poor suburb of Detroit, the daughter of a Ford assembly line worker and a nurse who juggled 3 jobs to support our family. From an early age, I learned that in life, you need to be smart, observe everything, and trust very few. My mother always said, "Delilah, honey, people show you who they really are when they think no one's watching." That lesson shaped my entire life. At 18, I moved to Miami with an old suitcase and $300 in my pocket, dreaming of working in the world of international business. The city seemed like paradise, palm trees swaying in the breeze, glass buildings reflecting the Caribbean sun, and an air of endless possibility. I landed a job as a receptionist at a small export company where I quickly learned that being invisible could be a major advantage. In 1993, at age 28, I was hired by Morrison Import and Export as an administrative assistant. The company had been founded by the patriarch Thomas Morrison in the 1970s and was being handed over to his 2 sons. Michael, the eldest, calculated and cold like a shark, and Stephen, the youngest, impulsive and arrogant like a peacock. Thomas was tough but fair. His sons, well, that's a whole different story. In those first years, I gave my all. I arrived 15 minutes early, stayed after 6 when needed, and learned every process in the company. I mastered the import systems, memorized customs codes, and knew the names of every international supplier. While other secretaries came and went, I stayed, building a reputation for reliability and efficiency. By the time Thomas Morrison died in 2001, I had become the living memory of the company. I knew every client, every vendor, every important transaction from the past 8 years. Michael and Stephen inherited the business, but they also inherited me. And from day one, it was clear they saw me as part of the furniture. "Delilah, bring coffee," Michael would command without even looking up from his papers. "Stephen, cancel my Tuesday meeting," Stephen would shout from his office. "Delilah, tell my wife I'm in an emergency meeting." They'd lie as they headed out for their affairs. Never a please, never a thank you, never any recognition that I was a human being with feelings. To them, I was old spinster Delilah, a woman who reached her 40s, then her 50s, without marrying, without kids, without any apparent social life. What they didn't know was that I had chosen this life deliberately. I had marriage proposals, opportunities for serious relationships, but I realized early on that my true calling was to observe, analyze, and understand human motives behind their social masks. For 2 decades, I was the silent guardian of the Morrisons' secrets. I saw Michael cheat on bids using insider information from corrupt government contacts. I witnessed Stephen laundering money from shady real estate deals through fake transactions with non-existent Central American companies. I documented every irregularity, every lie, every betrayal, not out of malice, but as a survival instinct. The Morrison office was on the 15th floor of a commercial building on Brickell Avenue overlooking the port of Miami. From my desk, I could see cargo ships arriving and leaving daily, supposedly carrying electronics, clothes, and manufactured goods. For years, I believed that story. After all, I was just the secretary. Why would I doubt what I was told? Everything started to change in March of 2023. I had just turned 58, and my routine at Morrison remained unchanged after 3 decades. Arrive at 7:30 a.m., prepare coffee for the brothers, organize their schedules, take calls, process documents, and head home at 5:30 p.m. to my small apartment in Coral Gables. It was a predictable, almost mechanical life, but one that gave me a sense of stability many people don't have. It was on a rainy Tuesday night that everything changed. I had forgotten my wallet at the office and returned around 9 p.m. to retrieve it. The building was empty, my footsteps echoed down the hallway, and the emergency lights cast eerie shadows on the walls. When I reached the 15th floor, I noticed the light on in Michael's office, unusual since he usually left early for his social outings. I approached silently, a skill I'd perfected after decades of being treated like I didn't exist. Through the slightly open door, I heard voices in Spanish and English. Michael was meeting with 3 men I'd never seen before. Latino, well-dressed, but with an air of danger that set off every alarm in my gut. "The containers arrive early Wednesday morning," Michael said in his business tone. "Pier number 7, as usual. Rodriguez will be waiting with clean paperwork." "How much this time?" one of the men asked in a Colombian accent. $4 million in cash, plus 2 kilos of the premium product for local distribution, Stephen replied, apparently having arrived while I hid in the hallway. My heart was pounding. $4 million? Premium product? After 30 years of processing import documents, I knew exactly what typical shipment values looked like. I'd never seen transactions of that size, let alone heard of any premium product on official manifests. "Does old Delilah still not suspect anything?" one of the visitors laughed. "Delilah? Huh, that mummy. She couldn't find water in the ocean if she fell out of a boat. For 30 years, all she's done is make coffee and answer phones. As far as she knows, we sell electronics." Stephen joined the laughter. "Poor thing probably thinks we're importing TVs and microwaves. She's perfect for our purposes, completely blind to anything beyond her pathetic little routine." Their words hit me like a punch to the stomach, not just because of the cruelty, but because of the devastating realization that my whole life had been a lie. For 30 decades, I had devoted my existence to a company that was apparently just a front for criminal activity. And they saw me as a useful idiot, a tool too convenient to get rid of. In the days that followed, I started watching everything with new eyes. The containers arriving at odd hours, the meetings kept off the official books, the clients who always paid in cash, Michael and Stephen's frequent trips to Colombia and Mexico. All these pieces started forming a terrifying puzzle. I used my administrative access to investigate discreetly. I found offshore bank accounts in the Cayman Islands, shell companies registered in Panama, and a complex web of transactions that turned dirty drug money into clean investments in luxury real estate and legitimate businesses. Morrison Import and Export was, in reality, one of the biggest money laundering operations on the east coast of the United States. The Morrison brothers had turned their father's respectable legacy into a criminal machine, processing millions of dollars monthly for Mexican and Colombian cartels. For months, I documented everything meticulously. I photographed confidential documents with a high-quality phone I'd bought just for that purpose. I recorded incriminating conversations with a digital recorder I kept hidden in my desk drawer. I copied electronic files to flash drives I hid at home. I mapped out the entire criminal structure as if it were an audit project. "Delilah, are you okay?" asked Sarah Martinez, the only employee in the company that showed any humanity. Sarah had worked in accountant for 5 years and was always kind to me, unlike most of the staff who treated me like part of the office decor. "I'm fine, sweetie," I replied, forcing a smile. "Just a little tired." The truth was, I was exhausted, physically and emotionally. Discovering your whole life has been built on a lie is soul-crushing. Worse still was realizing that, indirectly, I had helped facilitate terrible crimes by keeping the company's respectable facade running so smoothly. In October 2023, I overheard a conversation that made me fully grasp the magnitude of the operation. Michael was on the phone with someone who apparently coordinated the criminal activities on a national level. "Miami is processing $15 million a month now," he said. Our friends down south are very pleased with the efficiency. The scheme is working so well, they're considering expanding to Jacksonville and Tampa. $15 million a month. That meant $180 million a year of dirty money being cleaned through the company where I had worked for 3 decades. And all of it was happening right under my nose, while I was treated like a harmless idiot. That's when I made the decision that would change everything. I would turn the Morrisons in to the authorities. Not out of revenge, although their cruelty certainly deserved punishment, but because it was simply the right thing to do. For years, they had used my reputation for honesty and my dedication as a shield for their crimes. It was time to use those very same traits against them. I began carefully planning how to deliver the evidence to the FBI. I had to be strategic. If I made a wrong move, they could destroy the evidence and get away with it. I was preparing a full dossier when, in December 2023, my life took an entirely unexpected turn. During a routine medical appointment that month, Dr. Robert Chin, my physician for 15 years, delivered the news that changed everything. Delilah, I have to be direct with you. The scans show a tumor in your pancreas. Given the size and location, we're looking at very advanced stage cancer. The words echoed in my mind like gunshots in an empty cathedral. I asked, "How long?" surprised by my own calm. He said, "With aggressive treatment, maybe 6 to 8 months. Without treatment," he paused painfully, 3 to 4 months. I left Dr. Chen's office in Aventura with a strange sense of clarity. Death was not something I feared. At 58, with no close family and no major regrets, I had long accepted that life is finite. But that revelation completely changed my plan for revenge against the Morrisons. That night, sitting in my small apartment overlooking the canal, I made the most important decision of my life. I would not hand the Morrisons in to the FBI right away. Instead, I would craft a far more elaborate plan, a posthumous revenge that would be far more devastating and poetic than anything I could do while alive. I spent the following weeks meticulously refining my plan. First, I created multiple automated email accounts using services that allowed scheduling messages to be sent on specific future dates. I scheduled messages to be sent exactly on the first anniversary of my death, a date I knew would carry symbolic weight. The second step was organizing all the evidence in an irrefutable way. I scanned documents, digitized recordings, organized photographs, and created a complete digital dossier documenting 3 years of the Morrisons' criminal activity. Every illegal transaction, every incriminating conversation, every offshore account. Everything was carefully cataloged and explained in detail that even a layperson could understand. The third element of the plan was the most ingenious. I programmed the emails to be sent simultaneously to the FBI, DEA, IRS, and the 3 major news outlets in Miami, the Miami Herald, Miami New Times, and NBC6 South Florida. But not just that. The emails would be sent during the event I knew the Morrisons would organize. How did I know that? Simple. For years, I had observed that Michael and Stephen always hosted big PR events whenever they needed to clean up their image after minor scandals. It was as predictable as the sunrise. When I died, they would surely organize a tribute to show they were compassionate employees who cared about their loyal staff. In January 2024, I began cancer treatment, but I refused aggressive chemotherapy. I told Dr. Chen I valued quality of life over quantity. In truth, I simply wanted to make sure I would die at the right time for my plan to work. During my final months, I continued working as usual. Michael and Stephen noticed I was thinner and paler, but chalked it up to age. "Old Delilah is looking more skeletal every day," Stephen cruelly remarked one afternoon, unaware I was literally dying. Maybe it's time to retire her, Michael suggested. We could hire someone younger, more appealing to Greek clients. Not yet, Stephen replied. She knows every process by heart. Training a replacement would be a nightmare. Let her work until she drops. Those words gave me a bitter satisfaction. They would continue needing me until the end, never suspecting that I was orchestrating their downfall with every document I touched. On January 28th, 2024, exactly 4 months after my diagnosis, I passed away peacefully in my apartment. Sarah Martinez found me when she came to pick up some documents I had forgotten at home. Truthfully, I had arranged it so that someone I trusted would find me and handle my death properly. The funeral was small and somber. Michael and Stephen attended out of obligation, wearing dark suits and solemn expressions that fooled no one. During the service, I overheard them talking about how they would restructure my department. Finally, we can modernize that outdated operation, Michael muttered, and hire someone who doesn't look like they came out of a museum, Stephen added. Even in death, they couldn't muster a shred of respect or humanity. As expected, in December 2024, the Morrisons announced a special event for January 2025, the Delilah Bishop Memorial, celebrating a life of dedication. The event was scheduled for January 28th, 2025, exactly 1 year after my death, at the Intercontinental Miami Ballroom with local press and business leaders in attendance. The irony was delicious. They had picked the exact date I had programmed for my revenge, turning their PR stunt into their own destruction. On the morning of January 28th, 2025, while Michael Morrison adjusted his navy blue tie in the mirror of his office, and Stephen rehearsed his speech about our dear Delilah, who dedicated her life to the Morrison family, my automated emails sat quietly on digital servers, ready to be unleashed at 2:30 p.m., right at the peak of the memorial event. The Intercontinental Miami was elegantly decorated for the occasion. Around 200 people attended, clients of the company, local authorities, journalists, and both current and former employees. Sarah Martinez was there, visibly moved, one of the few who had truly cared about me. Local news reporters positioned their cameras strategically, expecting a human interest story about corporate loyalty. At 2:25 p.m., Michael stepped onto the stage for his speech. We are here today to honor an extraordinary woman who embodied the values of Morrison import and export for 30 decades. Delilah Bishop was more than an employee. She was part of our family. 5 minutes later, as Stephen took the microphone, the emails were triggered simultaneously. The first sign that something was wrong was when NBC6's lead reporter, James Rodriguez, checked his phone and visibly turned pale. Seconds later, Jennifer Walsh from the Miami Herald received the same notification. Within minutes, the entire press corps was in an uproar. Ladies and gentlemen, James Rodriguez interrupted, rising abruptly. We have just received extremely serious information about this company. Can someone explain these documented money laundering allegations in... Before he could finish, FBI and DEA agents stormed into the ballroom. The event descended into instant chaos. Guests screaming, reporters recording frantically, and the Morrison brothers being handcuffed live in front of 200 people and multiple TV cameras. Michael Morrison, you are under arrest for money laundering, conspiracy, and financing international drug trafficking, announced Special Agent Maria Santos as cameras captured every second. Michael's face was a mixture of utter shock and terror. Stephen tried to flee, but was tackled by 2 agents before reaching the door. How? Michael shouted. "How do you know about—" "Courtesy of Delilah Bishop," Agent Santos replied, holding up a flash drive. "She documented 3 years of your criminal activity and scheduled everything to be delivered today, on the anniversary of her death. Apparently, the old spinster was far smarter than you ever imagined." Sarah Martinez was crying, not out of sorrow, but a strange mix of pride and justice. She had always sensed there was something special about me, something the Morrisons never managed to see. In the following months, the federal investigation based on my evidence led to the dismantling of an international money laundering network operating in 6 U.S. states. Michael received 25 years in federal prison. Stephen got 20. Dozens of accomplices were arrested, including corrupt Miami port officials and lawyers who facilitated the offshore transactions. Morrison Import and Export was permanently shut down, its assets seized to compensate victims of the drug trade. The building on Brickell Avenue, where I worked for 30 decades, now houses an NGO dedicated to fighting organized crime, an irony I find deeply satisfying. Sarah Martinez received a $500,000 reward for being a cooperative informant, though she didn't know she was cooperating until after my death. She used the money to open a small accounting firm specializing in anti-fraud audits. And me? Well, I achieved something few people ever do, the perfect revenge. For 30 years, I was invisible, ignored, treated like furniture by men who thought they were better than everyone else. But in death, I finally took center stage. The mummy secretary who couldn't find water in the ocean took down a multi-million-dollar criminal empire with nothing but patience, intelligence, and a meticulously planned strategy. Today, when criminology students and federal agents study the Morrison case, they learn one crucial lesson. Never underestimate someone who has spent decades quietly watching. Sometimes the most invisible people are the ones who see everything. And if there's a moral to my story, it's this. True strength doesn't come from power or money. It comes from the ability to do the right thing at the right time, even when it requires the ultimate sacrifice. Delilah Bishop may have been invisible in life, but in death, she saw and revealed it all.